And good evening. Welcome to We Believe Digital Studios in Jackson, Mississippi for our weekly Sizzilin In Mississippi show. Chris Young alongside Monty Joan Prim. How are you this evening, Miss Prim?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing good. It's been we didn't have temperatures in the triple digits today.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Feels good.
I think we got up to 92, 93, 94, but I mean, that seemed like blessed relief from what's been going on.
There's a big difference.
But and we're selfish about that too, because other areas of the country, I mean, there's parts of Texas and Phoenix and all, they saw much, 10 degrees hotter than we ever got. So just glad it might be passing, and there might even be a little rain coming tonight, they're saying.
There's a chance.
How about that?
A decent chance.
We'll take it. Well, we're so happy you're joining us. It's been a lot going on in this over this past weekend, and we want to speak to you about it. A lot of different topics. We want to talk a bit about this National Summit Against Police Brutality and Injustice, which was held Saturday in Brandon, Mississippi. Dr. Cornel West, also numerous stops in Mississippi, in Lexington, in Jackson, in Brandon. I believe it's Tuesday. We'll be in Macomb, making a real commitment to Mississippi, and just in June he had announced his People's Party to become a presidential candidate in the People's Party, or a Green Party, Green Party, if you will. And then we have this shooting down in Jacksonville. Once again, a white person killing 3 black people. Really horrible, complex story, and while that was going on, the continuation march was going on up in Washington, the continuation for the March on Washington, and just so much going on, so much to talk about. So, did you have any preference where we get rolling, Monty?
Why don't we start with the March on Washington?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Okay, so this was the 60th commemoration of the March on Washington, and so every year they always have some type of tribute, some type of rally in Washington, D.C. Of course, when it happens on the 10th of every 10th anniversary, there's a great deal more celebration than the other years, and so this was one of them. This particular year looked a lot different from the 1963 march. There was a lot of diversity. I noticed that they had people beginning with speakers who were paying tribute to Gandhi, and these were Hindus who were talking about Gandhi, and I wondered how did that actually fit in a march that is about fairness and equality when Gandhi hated black people, and this was a traditional black march. I know that Martin Luther King wasn't really actually probably aware of what Gandhi was like, and unfortunately a statue of Gandhi sits in front of the Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta, but it's something that should be taken down, just like you're taking down Confederate statues around the country, every place except Mississippi. And so they talked about that, and they basically just whoever had a point of view spoke. But I thought that was disingenuous to speak of Gandhi as an honorable man.
So the coordinators must have made a call, or?
Probably not.
I mean, they do it as some kind of, it seemed like they have an organization from the bits I saw on TV anyway.
Well, of course, they have an organization, but the question is, does the organization screen the participants to the extent that they actually need to? And I would say this time they did not.
The historical significance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, with the first march, it was male-driven and male-focused.
Right.
This march, it was everybody.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. Lots of women this time.
Right. My mother participated in the original march in 1963 as part of the delegation from Minnesota. In that delegation was the two U.S. senators from Minnesota, who were Hubert Humphrey and Eugene McCarthy. Eugene McCarthy would go on later to be the governor of Minnesota. And it made me think about how many states actually had representation at the march by political figures. Also, there was a congressman, Dan Frazier, who later became mayor of Minneapolis, but was first a U.S. congressman. And I thought about how many states actually had politicians of measure attending the March on Washington, and I'd like to see those figures. Yeah, because of course we know that there were probably none from the South, but I'm wondering about more liberal areas. Did they attend?
Right.
Yeah. So there is a photograph, and it may be being shown now. Yeah. And the top photographs you'll see are pictures of my mother and the two senators from Minnesota, Humphrey and Eugene McCarthy. And of course, Humphrey at the time was a very well-known U.S. senator, had introduced civil rights legislation as early as 1948. So my mother was a registered nurse, and she was the nurse and medical person on the trip. And the way that they got there, most people either walked or drove to the march, but Minnesotans actually flew. And what they did was they chartered a plane from Northwest Orient Airlines, which was one of the major airlines, no longer in business today, but they were one of the largest airlines, and so the price of it was $5,600 back then.
Wow.
Right, which was a costly sum back there if you think about like a yearly income being, if you had a good yearly income, it was probably $5,600.
Yeah.
And so what they did was, my sister's godmother, Mrs. Wynn, contacted a black doctor who lived behind her across the alley, Dr. Johnson, and she asked him to write a check to Northwest Airlines, and he did, and this was on a Friday.
Wow.
And he said by Monday, please have the money for me. Please collect it. So she did. What they did was they went downtown Minneapolis, and they sold buttons that were pictures of a black hand shaking a white hand, and they also just took donations. And those donations actually exceeded the $5,600 necessary to charter the plane.
Isn't that a nice story?
Yeah.
That is really nifty.
Yeah. So they had about 60 people in the delegation, and they all attended the March on Washington together. And it was, of course, one of the most diverse states there, racially speaking.
Yeah. 250,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Now this time they say tens of thousands, I guess I read somewhere.
Yeah, well, see, they have changed that number over the years. I remember being a child and reading about it in the World Book Encyclopedia, and they said 600,000. Then it went from 600,000 to 350,000.
Wow.
And then it went from 350,000 to 250,000. So the history and the count keeps changing. I'm not sure exactly why. But
yeah, my mind goes
Right. But we know that there were a number of people, hundreds of thousands, and it was something that lives in history, mostly because of the fact that Martin Luther King delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech. Right.
And I saw the attorney Jones. I'm spacing out on his first name. Andrea Mitchell interviewed him today, and he had prepared a speech that apparently Dr. King had gotten started on, but then something happened, and he of course, Mahalia stepped forward and shouted what she shouted to tell him about the dream, Martin, and this Jones, this
Queen of Gospel, Mahalia Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this Attorney Jones recanted today on the MSNBC program about how something just came over, Dr. King, and he lifted up his right foot and scratching the back of his left leg, and just kind of acting a little. I guess he was trying to make up his mind.
Okay.
And then he moved. He said he moved the speech over to the left-hand side of the lectern, and off he went with the "I Have a Dream" speech.
Yeah. Well, I noticed if you look carefully, you'll see him rise and fall on his tippy toes. Yeah, on his toes. He would rise up and come down, and rise up and come down. And at that point, he had done something similar to that in terms of the speech "I Have a Dream," that part that speaks about the dream. But at this point, you're right. It was an improvisational part, and it rang the truest of that speech.
Maybe the best speech ever.
It's a great one.
Yeah,
it's a great one. Not my favorite. My favorite is probably his last one, or his speech in Selma. But I do admire the cadence and what he was really trying to portray, something of an America that looked different to him than what he had seen, at least in the South.
And this from the New York Times, they trying to provide a summary. They said the speakers called for an end to hate and bigotry, and I just you just try to process all that. They talked about all the different topics. Civil rights abuses, systemic racism, hate speech, hate crimes, police brutality, gun violence, poverty, loss of voting rights, collapse of reproductive rights, just naming some of the topics that the different speakers spoke to.
Right.
I wish I could have been there.
Which is a little different than in 1963, they talked about jobs and freedom.
Yeah.
Right, but it's different. It was different for today. Last Saturday was when the commemorative march occurred. But it's interesting how time progresses, but the issues remain the same. Also, with the March on Washington in 1963, you had people who were assigned to speak and scheduled to speak, but did not. The great writer, Mr. James Baldwin, he was going to speak, and they had the government did highly edited the speeches and required a draft of every speech that was going to be given at the march, and he refused to do that. In fact, what they did was they provided him a speech to read, and here is the great genius of a writer, one of the greatest writers of all time, and he said no.
Yeah.
And so he did not speak, is what I have been told. And of course, this was a march that was supposed to be years prior to 1963, but they couldn't. They wanted to really bring the fire, and so they weren't allowed to do the march then. But on this particular day, we're talking about August 28th. Now, that's the last day of the life of Emmett Till. And of course, this weekend was a commemoration of Emmett Till's life, a celebration of his life, and a remembrance of the hatred and jealousy and madness that ended his life.
Right.
Right. And of course, also at the march, they announced the end of life for Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah, just etched so firmly into the history of this nation. And I noticed this comment by Andrea Waters King, daughter-in-law of Martin Luther King Jr., one of a number of family members that spoke at the event, and she said, "We're here to liberate the soul of the nation, the soul of a democracy, from those forces who would have us all go backwards and perish rather than go forward as sisters and brothers." And talk about pulling it together. So much of this divisions and tribalization, and we haven't seen where there's any, these white supremacists, they don't accomplish anything moving forward, but they definitely throw the hammer in the works or whatever of progress.
Right. Well, they're not actually interested in progress. They're interested in maintaining the status quo and going even backwards from there.
Yeah.
So regress is their siren song.
Yeah, and even present day right now with the legislators and all, they they just want to focus on yesterday.
Right.
They don't. And I got a funny feeling, Monty. I don't know. I don't know a lot about anything, but I feel there could be a change in the wind coming.
Perhaps.
And I think it's going to be these young people going to deliver it.
Well, that would be good, but at this point, they have to be educated. They have to be trained into it. And with legislation that threatens that education,
right,
we have to wonder how they're going to get it.
Yeah, and how they're going to get it. But they're going to get it despite the legislation, because it's not like people can't learn about critical race theory, for example.
Right.
Well, there we are. Does that about wrap up where you were sharing on the continuation march?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
So we're at the end of the first segment, folks, and we're just going to dip out for a couple of commercials, and we will be right back with you.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Hey, Have you heard about the Accountable Card? It's more than a card. It's a complete mobile banking service that's accountable to all of us. You'll get a no credit check debit card good anywhere Visa is accepted to make purchases, deposits, even get or transfer cash with an FDIC insured bank account managed from our smartphone app. There's even a pre-approved no interest line of credit if you need emergency cash. So why go to the bank when you can have ours in your pocket? Get accountable. Just download our app today.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into MDOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Sizzilin in Mississippi here on the We Believe Digital platform in Jackson, Mississippi. So glad you're joining us tonight. We're just working on getting the laptop so we can take a look at your comments. So I hope you'll join in, chime in. We do have a call-in number also, 1-800-492-5186. And if you're just joining us now, we've just, Monty's really been covering the continuation of the March on Washington, and a really nice update on all that. And now we just move over to Brandon on Saturday, on Saturday, the National Summit Against Police Brutality and Injustice that was held Saturday.
Right, at Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church.
Right.
Right.
And I counted 200 people there at the fullest part of that. That was a long event. Didn't really kick off exactly when they wanted to. Somebody got delayed flying in. It could have been Attorney Shabazz.
Okay.
But I know Dr. West was there.
Right.
Ready to roll.
He was. Tavis Smiley was actually there as well.
Tavis Smiley wanted no recognition whatsoever. Mm-hmm. He's just interested in what's going on.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly what he's doing now professionally, but I know the studio, we believe, definitely talked to him a couple of times while he was there. Who knows? Maybe he might be able to do something here on this platform.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would.
Such a prominent person like that to come. And so I know I saw you there for many hours, Monty, and I was in and out, and the no phone coverage in there, so ducking out the door for but powerful remarks by so many people over there.
Right.
Well over a dozen different speakers.
Yes.
And this is a really important event, to have the NAACP local organizing committee in Rankin County put this event on, along with the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation for Families, Black Voters Matter. There were several different sponsors to the event. Attorney Trent Walker himself helped sponsor the event. But really to see Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, along with Attorney Trent Walker, meticulously go over all this stuff with these cases over there. Right. And some things fell out for me first is that it really does. I just can't find anything on the internet where white law enforcement in the state of Mississippi have pleaded guilty to abusing black people.
Right.
So this is a first, and it leaves people really wondering, what's going on with that. Attorney Shabazz said he was shocked, when it happened.
Right.
And so I don't know what was behind all that. I hope it's not some type of rope-a-dope trickery of some form. You never know with these people, but that really. What he's really saying, this is a turning point. Not only for Rankin County, but also in the nation. That these white law enforcement are pleading guilty to both federal and state charges.
Right. Well, the evidence was overwhelming. And so they just did the smart thing to do, and that is to plea bargain. And so this is a plea bargain that was done, and so they confessed to actually lesser charges. They could have faced 20 or more years in prison. There will be a sentencing on November the 14th.
Yeah.
But even with that, they'll serve half or less time than they actually could have and should have.
I can't seem to see that anywhere, but I hear you.
Yeah.
What I saw was that the state charges were going to be these number of years, and the federal charges were ungodly,
Right.
Amounts of years. So what
Right.
you're saying is, at the last minute, they put all that together and said, well, we'll plead guilty if.
Right.
That's what you're
They were
saying?
they were given a lesser charge in order to plead guilty, and also that the state charge, which of course they would have to admit to as well, the sentencing will run concurrent.
Yeah.
So even if the state gives them 10 years and the feds give them 10 years, it won't be 20 years that they're actually serving.
If you see that, if you find that anywhere, I would love to review that, because I write about this kind of stuff, and I can't seem to find anywhere where it says a plea bargain. I just kind of had in my head that, they were told if you ever hope to get out of prison in your lifetimes, you'd plead guilty.
Right. Well, they were going to always be able to get out at some point, but I'm closer to the case, and so. I hear from the principals.
Yeah.
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 And met one of the victims too.
Did you?
Yes.
Which one?
Not Michael, but can't think of the other
Eddie.
young Eddie. Yeah, I met him. Yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was great.
And they're really taking this hard, because it's terrible. What happened to them, the near rape and the assaults and the waterboarding and thinking that they were going to die at some point,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fanny Prim, for providing that name.
Terry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry Prim, for contributing that name. Clarence Jones, I couldn't think of his name. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Mr. Lewis, as always. Another thing that came out, Mati, was that really, it was just so good to hear, was that this thing with the Damian Cameron case.
Yes.
Shabazz is confident that that's going to move to justice.
Yes.
And Luke Stickman, I believe it was, and the Hunter Elward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with the Damian Cameron case, we're talking about a case where police were called, and he was a suspect, but he was having a mental sort of crisis, health crisis, and it wasn't a major call. I mean, it was something along the lines of maybe just about disturbing the peace. But this is what organizations are talking about when they're talking about defunding the police. I think it's a terrible term to use because it leads to a lot of misunderstanding of what that actually is. And really what they're talking about is not defunding the police, but funding mental health professionals to aid when there's mental health crisis among suspects or whomever, and that they can come in and handle that. The police aren't trained to do it, and when you mix in the lack of training with the white supremacist attitudes in Rankin County, where you just have license to kill, that's what they did to Mr. Damian Cameron. They beat him to death.
And then kneeled on his neck.
Yes, once again.
And which is a beautiful segue to the next thing, Joni, Mati, that really caught my eye was this state medical examiner. Really, you got this distinct impression listening to Attorney Shabazz that they're not going to let that go. When you have, not once but repeatedly, where these black people are killed, and the findings come back undetermined, or there's another word, inconclusive, maybe something like that.
Yes.
And this is a scientist, a pathologist.
Right.
State medical examiner's office is doing this. I mean, these people have creds. They have, they swore an oath.
Supposedly.
And now you got the New York Times footing the bill for 3 independent pathologists, renowned pathologists involved in very big cases.
Sure.
And they all 3 of them said murder, murder, murder.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, but for some reason, all the time, there's so many cases where there are people wrongfully convicted that are sitting and wasting away in prisons in Mississippi because of the ineptitude and the downright bias and negligence on the part of the medical examiner.
Well, surely we hope that can they can put some pressure on that somehow, some way. I mean, how do if you're the state medical examiner and you have these 3, renowned pathologists totally disagreeing with you and justifying why they're doing that?
Right. They're clear homicides.
And what do you do when you're the state medical? I mean, how do you stand up to that?
Yeah. Well,
maybe you resign.
Well, they should. I mean, they should. They need to clean house because this has been a problem for a very long time. There's been evidence falsified. And they continue to go on.
By the medical examiner?
By the medical examiner.
Wow.
And they don't go back and review the previous cases to see if those are correct or not, or if it's, again, something that was artificially determined, fault was determined, when it shouldn't have been. The person's innocent.
Right.
And they're languishing in prison. It's wrong.
Yeah, horribly, horribly wrong. It just the whole this whole system. I mean, from start to finish. I mean, just a white lady says she don't like the way something looks.
Yeah, it's all over. But when I go into the prisons, and I've been doing this for more than 10 years here in Mississippi, all I see are people who are mostly impoverished and undereducated. There's very few people in prison that aren't. And that's the problem with Mississippi accepting an education program that is not only biased but inefficient and ineffectual. Yeah, because how were you supposed to rise above poverty without education? Education's the key to getting rising economically, and we don't have it here. Yeah, 50th in education.
Yeah, and supposedly 5.5% of contracting in Mississippi going to minorities.
And it causes, well, black people and others, but it causes poverty.
No question.
Yeah, it's just a recipe for poverty. People aren't educated properly. Public library system is just subpar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my personal library looks better than most of the neighborhood libraries in Jackson. The main library is shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, inside the back door, or no, I don't know if it will be. Last time they shifted it the last second from the, in the back of the main of the Eudora Welty Library on State Street. They shifted my voting over to the Old Capitol Inn.
Okay. Yes.
That was the first time I went in there.
Okay.
Would have never ever gone in there. I don't think, had it not been for a need to vote.
Right. Yeah, but this whole total lack of adequate provisions for the citizens of Mississippi is reflective of the culture of Mississippi, and that many believe the power brokers believe that the way to maintain power is to keep people undereducated and unhealthy.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Shabazz talked about numerous, now starting to do research on numerous class action lawsuits.
Yes.
So you'd be talking about the procedures, as you said, things were hidden or made up along the investigative process in different ways, class action lawsuits that they're researching now. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. I know at the very end, people just started forming a line to ask questions, and I asked Attorney Shabazz, is there enough evidence now to be able to call for a federal takeover of the sheriff's office in Rankin County? And first word out of his mouth was absolutely. Because we have these takeovers of schools.
Sure.
There have been other police departments.
Right.
Water systems, sewer systems, whatever.
Yes.
Here's a good example of something that ought to be taken over.
Right.
Because you got to get at the root.
Right.
Because who's going to, if Brian Bailey were to resign or something befell him and leave
office.
Right.
The next person.
What the pool looks like.
Right, exactly. It's contaminated. Yeah.
So
that's the problem. So there does need to be a takeover so that they can really create another police culture.
Yes.
In Rankin County.
Yes. And Cornell West.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know you got to spend some time now. We've only got about 3 minutes left in this segment. If we need to move it over into the next, we can. But you got a personal visit, I understand.
I did indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Well, I got a hug when he was leaving the building that I wasn't expecting. But a personal visit, wow.
Yes, yeah, it was wonderful. Dr. West came to my bookstore, and we had a lot of time to talk together, and he observed my museum wall and pictures of my ancestors, and explained to him the Tuskegee model, how people took who attended Tuskegee Institute in Alabama brought that Tuskegee model to Mississippi. One of them being Dr. William Hoscloth, who created Utica Technical Institute, also Prentice, Normal School, and Piney Woods, just to name three. So we talked about that. He was he looked at the famous and notable Mississippians that are on the wall, and that was on Friday. The next day, when he spoke at Pell Pilgrim Rest Church, he talked about the different people that he saw on the wall. And I was listening, and I said, wait a minute. I said, he's talking about all the people that he saw on the wall. So he talked about David Ruffin being from Wynot, Mississippi, and Aretha Franklin being from Memphis, but her father, C.L. Franklin, being from Mississippi, from Shelby. And he mentioned other people like Sam Cooke. Yeah. And so that was wonderful.
It was a joy. For me,
Yes.
it was a joy to listen to him.
Yeah.
And the crowd, I was trying to gauge, and it just seemed like there was such a sense of gratitude from the attendees.
Right.
That here's this, this intellectual with few comparisons.
Right.
And to come and spend all this time in little old Mississippi.
Yeah, I mean, he did. He spent a lot of time at my bookstore, and then when he left, he said, well, what are you all going to do? Talking to me and a couple of friends of mine, and we're like, we're hanging out with you for the rest of the night. And so we did.
You helped him with his calendar.
Yeah, we did. And so we ended up being part of his entourage. We all went to the Civil Rights Museum, and there was a screening there of the movie Till.
Yes.
And he talked about Marshall's Music and Bookstore because he had a presentation there. We met Keith Beauchamp, the creator of the documentary on Emmett Till, the one that featured Emmett Till's mother, Mrs. Mamie Till. And of course, that was really the last major production that she did before she passed on. And it was wonderful to meet him, and wonderful to see how Priscilla Stewart Till is taking on the mantle, she said, of her relative, Mrs. Mamie Till, and pushing the story of Emmett Till, his narrative, forward for generations to come.
And Priscilla is a cousin, would be a cousin of Emmett's.
She is.
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
And she was also at that event, in Brandon, and was just a fiery speaker. There's we're only able to go over so much of that tonight. There is a story coming out midweek this week in the Mississippi Link that goes into a lot more detail with a lot more of the speakers than we're able to mention here tonight. Do you know by chance what the visit to Lexington, do you know anything about Dr. West's visit up there, what the goal was?
That was the only place that I think I didn't go to with him.
Yeah.
I had to work. But that's one of the places because, of course, we're talking about Holmes County. And so they had something similar to what we saw Saturday in terms of pushing the idea of justice and freedom and unity, and that's what that was the objectives for Lexington.
And remember when they locked up Miss I hate that. But they locked up the young attorney, black female attorney, for taking pictures.
Yes, in Lexington.
I remember you telling me that you knew her, and I've corresponded with her, but I haven't heard anything back yet. And now her name is escaping me. But that was only 4 or 5 months ago.
Right.
So
amazing.
A lot of overlap with Lexington and Brandon.
Yes. Always a lot of history. A lot of history. Right, because Lexington we know of from Eddie Knoll.
Right.
Right. The man who is the love child of former Governor Edward Knoll. A man who had shot and killed 3 white men in 1955 in Lexington. And lived to tell about it. When they caught up with him, because he turned himself in, not because they got him, it was voluntary. The judge said, any black man who would kill 3 white men in Mississippi must be crazy. And so they put him in Whitfield Mental Hospital instead of prison, and he was allowed to stay there until which time he was released and moved to Indiana, Fort Wayne, and lived out his days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're up against, we blew past the end of that second segment, so we'll just take a couple of commercials, and then we'll be right back with you for the final segment.
for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas, check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link is an African American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Hey, have you heard about the Accountable Card? It's more than a card. It's a complete mobile banking service that's accountable to all of us. You'll get a no credit check debit card good anywhere Visa is accepted to make purchases, deposits, even get or transfer cash with an FDIC insured bank account managed from our smartphone app. There's even a pre-approved no interest line of credit if you need emergency cash. So why go to the bank when you can have ours in your pocket? Get accountable. Just download our app today.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just heading into our final segment tonight. There was a 1,000 black men gathering in Jackson at the convention center on Sunday. And as Monty shared with you earlier, she missed very little this weekend. She was there. I certainly was not. Tell us about it.
I was a panel member.
Mm-hmm.
And so the panel really was on justice and unity. Once again, that theme rang through for the entire weekend. Attorney Malik Shabazz was there. Professor Cornell West was there. He spoke. They had the young man who had been victimized by Rankin County Police. One of them, he spoke. A number of different people spoke. It was ecumenical. You had people from the Nation of Islam, but you also had a Christian preference or presence as well. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful gathering. Miss Priscilla Stewart-Till, she also showed up as well, and Rukia Lumumba, who is running for state legislature. Miss Lumumba showed up as well. And a lot of people talking about issues really around the idea of uplift.
Yeah.
Right.
Did they get the gathering they were hoping?
It was less than 1,000, but I think this is just a start, and they're working their way towards 1,000 and more.
And how about Brother Kareem Muhammad? Was he there?
Yes, he was actually the moderator.
Okay.
Right.
He's quite a speaker.
He is.
I think a category all of his own. Really, really dynamic, really knowledgeable.
Yes.
Nothing gets past him.
No. He's visually impaired.
Yeah.
And yet and still, it's like you have to kind of remind yourself that he is. Mm-hmm. Because of the way that he operates, the way that he's able to sense things. It's like he still has a type of vision. Yeah.
A gift.
Yes.
Yeah, well, good. I'm so glad that went down, and I'm so glad to hear you say that could be the beginning of something, more going on.
Right. It senses to be a type of movement.
Good.
Yeah, and like I said, Dr. West was here, and he came on his own dime. Mm-hmm. He required nothing of anyone. He paid for his own everything, room, board, and travel expenses, because he felt strongly that it needed to be supported, what our initiatives here in Mississippi. the positive things that we're doing here in order to really make a change in Mississippi, because that's necessary. It really is. And he was one to just say, I will be here and I will do all I can do this weekend. He didn't even mention his presidential campaign.
Yeah.
Right. Just very selfless.
Yeah, other people did it for him, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he's such a superstar. He was hugging everyone and very attentive. He has the quality that great politicians do, and that is to, when he speaks to you, you feel like you're the only person in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really noteworthy to me too.
Right.
That is so true. I mean, I was taken by that.
Yeah.
Even beforehand, before the event even got started, he would acknowledge different people in the audience and make gestures to them. Not aloof like many people can be until the actual spotlight is on
right,
them.
And then they
part
come on.
of.
Right, that's just who he is. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing. I want
really
to write
is.
him and thank him for that.
Yeah, I mean he has a fantastic memory. It's just really amazing.
And then, sadly, Monty, this shooting down 20 miles south of Jacksonville, I guess, at a Dollar General.
Right.
This guy Ryan Christopher Palmeter, 21 years old. Apparently he went to the gate at Edward
Waters University.
and was turned away.
Yes.
I guess he couldn't just explain why he needed to be there.
Right, and
thank God for that.
Right, and the security looked at him and said, "Wait a minute, he's not dressed properly. He's wearing a heavy vest and things," and they turned him around. Yeah, he went on to the Dollar General and murdered 3 people, and without courage took his own life.
And the different sources I looked at for this, and believe that he was aware. Authorities believe that the gunman was aware of the 5th anniversary of this Jackson Landing shooting, and where this was a Madden
video game?
NFL video tournament, they said. And at the end of the tournament, I can't recall if he was a participant in the tournament, but at the end of the tournament, he opened fire, and that was just 5 years ago, and then and then killed himself. And they feel like this gunman was patterning. There was a lot of similarities.
Yes.
And apparently, he had texted his father. It's right there in front of me. Texted his father, told him to check his computer, which held several manifestos detailing his hatred of black people, according to the police down there.
Right. Yeah, he did that, and of course, this shooting occurred close to the 63rd anniversary of the Axe Handle Saturday massacre.
Just like a day away or something.
Yeah, where white rioters attacked black people using a lot of axe handles and
200
things.
200 Klan members.
Yes.
Attacking black protesters at a sit-in at a business where white owners kept them keeping them out, and they were saying, "You can't keep us out." And so the Klan said, "Oh yeah, we will."
Yes. Yeah, that happened. It's amazing the level of hate and vitriol that someone could actually gain in just 21 short years. It makes me wonder about his father and his parenting skills, and why he would incite a son to this area of hatred that manifests itself in mass violence and murder. So, yeah, now he can think about it because he's lost a son.
But
even if he doesn't care about the black people who were murdered, maybe he'll look at it and say, well, this is my son. And I hope other people will too, and dial back this madness.
And it's funny as these, not funny, but as these
Strange.
things happening, it's now look, I got to tell you, I've never heard of the axe handle Saturday, they call it.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. Read a lot of stuff, but never heard of it till today.
Yeah.
So this piece of violence,
Yeah.
people are going to learn. More people are going to learn. I don't think that's common knowledge.
Right.
And so more people are going to learn, and more people are going to start to, this is why I think that this is why partly why I say I feel like there's going to be a change in the wind coming, Mahati. I can't explain it, but it's something I just sense, and I hope for once I'm right about that.
All right. Yeah, it's possible. Very possible.
Well, we're starting to run out of time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we call it a week?
Well, our Democrat Sawaski Young is withdrawing from the Mississippi race, and with heart problems, and for
Gotta
me it
take
focuses,
care of yourself.
Yeah, and it focuses once again on Mississippi health, which is horrible.
Yeah. And so now this guy, Michael Watson, the current Secretary of State, will run unopposed.
Yeah.
Maybe there's going to be some write-in. I don't know, but
It won't be effective. This is a political machine.
There's never been a black Secretary of State.
No.
And here came Shawaski Young that really knows how to stand up tall.
Yeah.
And great person, knowledgeable person, has tons of experience where you'd like to believe he could operate in that crazy environment and help bring about change, but now that his health got the best of him.
Right.
Hopefully he can recuperate soon and get back to it.
Right.
Okay, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And actually, we are out next Monday. That's the Labor Day weekend Monday,
That is.
right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so next Monday we are out for that Monday due to a whole bunch of different things going on. So we will be back with you the following Monday.
Right.
And
this is going to be our last broadcast during the month of August, during the month of Black August.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so that would be September 11th, Monday, September 11th. We'll be back with you. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat, your comments and following along and so forth. If you ever have any ideas of how we could provide things that are more useful to you or expand on different topics or whatever, please don't be strangers. Give us a call, 1-800-492-5186. We're totally open to your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. So have a great rest of the week and Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you back on September 11th.